Just wanted to throw this in real quick, guys. A real special thank you to Ronda the Honda, project number 1. Believe it or not, that one made all 3 possible. And so, a salute to Ronda the Honda for being such a special part of everything I'm doing right now. So. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Steve the Canadian, and in this one I'm going to be showing you how to put rear suspension on 3 different models of 3-wheelers. Let's get into it. What is going on, guys? So we are here now with the 84 200S. This is going to be the first one out of the lineup, getting itself the treatment of the rear end. So let's go over kind of what we got to do here. So in this model of 3-wheeler, you're seeing here that the rear end is about just over a foot back from the motor. Is really a nice design. It gives you a lot of room if you want to customize, if you want to do things. Mind you, everything is a bit off center. I came to find out this frame is actually kind of bent. So it's good that it's getting some treatment here. So, first up, everything kind of in the ways got to go. So this bar, this bar, this bar, and I know right off the bat you're going to be, well, what are you do? You're cutting the frame, you're ruining it. Yeah, it kind of has to be done. So in order to put rear suspension on anything, you have to destroy what was there, what was original. And I've tried to do this a few times. It's not ideal unless you're using the right parts. Let's start with that, actually. I was going to go over that while I was doing it. So when you're doing this kind of thing, what I'm about to do is show you guys the basic principle of how to suspend your rear end that you already have on this machine. So this is going to be suspended on this by the end of this part of this video. So I'm not throwing on a dirt bike swing arm. I'm not going out and spending money. I'm not doing any of that. I'm going to show you guys how to suspend this if you do not care about this being original. But nonetheless, when it is done, I will still suggest that you guys use better parts. Get a swing arm for maybe a cheap dirt bike that you can find. You can find like a 80cc dirt bike with a smaller swing arm. See if you can find that. But the basic principles of what I'm about to or do this. But the basic principles of what I'm about to show you will apply to any parts you want to use to do this. Even if you change out the rear end and everything. Because you can buy totally different rear end carriers. So, yeah. So I'm going to get to chopping. I'm going to set this up. And you guys are going to see some stuff happen. I mean, I'll start, I guess, I'll just say that whole bottom piece becomes the swing arm. That's how you retain your original rear end. That will become the swing arm all across the bottom here. So this bar, there's a chain there and everything if you're not looking. This bar is going to go, and then this whole piece will become the swing arm. So this up, get ready to do this, and we'll get going at it. And just a quick side note, guys, this kind of hurts. I was just looking at the numbers of production numbers of these machines. So it's kind of nice that under that bag there is a 1984 200M. They don't have production numbers on that one. But this is a 1984 200S. They're from the same family. They were actually produced side by side. The one under that one and this one could have been in the same factory side by side coming out. Look at them now. That one doesn't even have a front on it. This one's about to not have a back on it. I feel really bad doing this, guys. 3-wheeler people, like, please don't hate on me for this, because according to the numbers, there's only 13,000 of these. But I don't care. there's only 13,200 S's apparently that were ever made. So, the typical thumb in the camera, I guess. So, I mean, is it heartbreaking that I'm going to take one and I'm going to literally decimate the frame? I told you guys I wouldn't decimate Ronda. But, and I mean, let's just pull this out here so you guys can see. Really, not the, I mean, they're not great, but they're not the worst plastics that guys ever seen, right? So, and the front end is the first hydraulic fully suspended front end. Those front ends apparently are much better than the later model front ends because the later ones are reliant on spring rate. These ones are hydraulic. You can create spring rate with hydraulics. Apparently that's much better of a ride and it's sought after. So I'm trying to retain that, but so, okay, back to the topic. Gonna set the camera up, gonna start cutting this. You guys are gonna see this thing start getting the basic idea. Yeah. You said never let me go. 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 You said Did you guys get that? I'm gonna have to go back on camera and see about that. That's how much the frame was bent. I knew it. I knew the frame was fucking bent. That's how much the thing just snapped as soon as I fucking cut it. Ting! Let's see now. Yeah. That didn't straighten the front, but it straightened this part. See? I'm already repairing it. I'm fixing this thing while I'm destroying it. That's how you do it. Bring stuff. You said never let me go. 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 we are at the point now where we got everything all choppy. So it's too late to go back now, guys. Can't complain. Sorry. But this is what we got. So you guys probably saw in the cutting parts, she already was going up and down. If you ever wondered what this style looks like in there, that's it. There's not much. They weld those tubes to that part of the frame. You know what I mean? So how stable that is, I mean, it's not welded on by much, is it? Or is it welded all the way around? It doesn't look like it's welded all the way around, guys. I think, I'm over here filming while I'm doing this. I think if I cut off the pipes, that whole piece would come off. And that would be alright. So, yeah, you guys, these pieces, oh, I got little pieces of metal all in my fucking ear. So, that's your exhaust bracket. If you're looking at the rear end from this way, you got your exhaust bracket, your side bars, that's what all those are. Those are the bars that mount to these to go up, and then your rear end. And you can already see once you cut it off, you basically have a swing arm, right? So I mean, right off the bat, you got wiggle room to work with. You got parts, you can see, and now you can see if you actually get a real swing arm, like a dirt bike one, how similar it is right off the bat, the principle of it all. So yeah, that's the, basically, and here, we'll just give what you need to remove if you want to put suspension on the rear of this style of three-wheeler. And I know you're going to be like, oh, well, this hangs now. You flop your ass down, that'll be it. You put bracing. That's why this is a little longer. You put bracing back to account for there being nothing there. So, 1984 200S, one of only 13,390 made, apparently. I salute you and thank you for your service. Yeah, because that's officially it. So, but if you guys have been following the videos, and if you guys watched to the end of the last video like I told you to, you probably skipped, that's fine. You knew what was coming for this one anyways. So, and it's got a little something to do with just that black shadow hanging out over there. Right? What do you normally do with something like that and something like that, just without all the top part? So the top part's going to go anyways. So that's not the exact bike that's going with this one, but you get the idea. So back to this thing. And I'm going to just put you guys back on there, keep cutting, and get the idea ready to show you here. So, alright, let's see. guys. So, it is a couple hours on from there. I only got a few things done, but I'll be real, I had to go do some work, and then I had to delete footage because my storage was full. But I want you guys to see step by step, and I'm doing this in one day for each project. 2 of the projects. So yeah, I want you guys to see step by step what's going on. So not much has happened since all of this. So you guys would have seen me clean all this up, and then what you guys didn't see was this is where that parts bike I found today helped. Took that pipe right there. That pipe is right there. You can see, let me show you, bent 180. Apparently these are Canadian Tire bikes. Again, yeah, whatever. But as you guys can see, let me just go around to this side. So it is 5 spots, 6, 7 spots up top, each side as well. Welded on up inside underneath, and then just the sloppiest gap fill known to man. But that's not what counts here. That's not what the goal is. The goal is to show you guys how to do this in a day, and then you guys can take your time from there and learn how to do it nice. Can't do anything nice in a day. Ask me how that one's going at the end of the video. I'll tell you how you can't do anything nice in a day. So I'm going to finish my coffee because I just got back, and I'm going to get going on that again. Because really guys, I guess I'll show you this side too. So now that that bar is on there, and that other bar, oh, you know what? Hang on guys, 2 seconds. Okay, this is just roughing it out. So, you guys see now the whole rear end. Okay, I actually had a thought when I was looking at this. If you guys wanted a lowrider 3-wheeler, I mean, it already is. Like, your motor would face a little higher. You'd have to have bigger forks, but you could lowride a 3-wheeler rear fast. But, okay, so I'm getting off track. So that is what I cut off on top of that bar now. See? Now, I'm going to cut out this center tab here again. I'm going to cut this whole plate right off. The rear end should hold these 2 bars together long enough to get it together. But the goal now is to make sure it's center, chop out this bar in a nice circle pattern all the way on each side. Same on this side. And then weld these bars to each bar. And then you will have what's considered a swing arm. So, I'm going to keep going to show you the principle, the theory, and everything is sound. And then we'll mount up a shock real quick. And really, as you guys can see, once that is done, mounting a shock is the major component. And then we're on to bracing. You know what I mean? A couple of brace bars back in. So, let's finish this bet. Oh, look at that. That just looks weird as can be. It looks like some awkward steampunk machine. Imagine if it fired up right there, popping. Pop, 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 pop. You chop wood. Oh, that's not even on there. Oh man, I got lucky there. I forgot. That's just very lightly sitting there. Alright, see you guys in a bit. Alright guys, come here. Hey guys, how's it going? The stage we are at, we have at least a loose rear end on the machine, right? If you guys think you're not doing this to suspend your rear, like not chopping it up and doing this kind of stuff, you're severely wrong. This is what's required. But original parts, moving on. So, as you can see, bar in bar. After we got, that is the original, this, oh no, it's cold. These are hot. Oh no, it's hot. That's the bike frame middle part from under the seat. And then this tube, because that was 1 inch. The tube, which is 3/4 inch, just happened to come off of the front of this thing. So, I mean, getting 3-inch tube is easy, but I just happen to have 3/4 inch tube there. So, I went with that. So, she's got a rear end, and just in case you don't believe me, oh, it's pretty heavy actually. And see, actually, this will give you guys a lesson. So, if you're going by geometry, see how the bike is flat? But I could have left the pipe flat so it didn't go all the way down. But think about it this way. Your machine, when weight's on it, is always going to want to push up the rear end. Right? So, you're always going to sink. If you can counter, when you're putting suspension on something, if you can counter the sink, the sag's a way better word. If you can counter the sag that you're going to get right off the bat in this frame, frame's level, this is down a bit. When you sit on it, it's going to come up, right? It's going to pivot. But if you put it level, when you sit on the machine and it pivots, you're low riding, right? So right now when you sit down, it's gonna do that, and then your machine's still level because of spring rate. But if you put it there to begin with, it's gonna do that when you sit on it. Because you got to remember, your force applied at a greater angle, the more it's gonna sag. So like, and that's just coming into play of where you put your shock. But if you put your shock already too compressed at an angle, you're gonna sag too much right off the bat. So something to keep in mind along the way when you're doing this. Oh what? A truck just drove by with a flatbed on it that had like it had like a Model A, like a 1921 Model A or 22, but the size of this. And it was like all rusty. It looked like, oh my God, I gotta see what that guy's doing. That guy's onto something. But all right guys, we're moving on to the shock mounts now. I'll see you guys when it's set.
Lights went down when you feel lost in your shadow. Don't feel alone, don't scream so loud. We are living in this cruel world. Broken but strong, gotta move on. You're not a bakery of life. Equip my soul, find the real gold. I'll fulfill what I started.
So here's what's going on, guys. I'm sure you've seen we have a suspended three-wheeler, but not quite yet. So I showed you guys how to do this with what you have, not with 100 things that you need. So with the original chain on, even if I move it, you know it doesn't fit anymore? The shock. Look at that. It's out by 6 inches. So it's gonna move forward. Yeah. So I'm gonna move that, and then I'll get back at you guys when she's almost ready to go. It's getting there, right? Right? Please tell me. Okay. All right. Hello again. So, guys. Oh, let me show you something. So, we have a rear suspension bike now. So, I am gonna get everything all cleaned up here. As you can see, we built a mount up top. Now, that is just what I had to work with. I'll go over it with you guys. I am destroying pieces I need. Hang on. Even more. Okay, yeah. I am going to clean this stuff up, and then I will get back to you guys in a minute with what's going on with this, what's working, what you need to watch out for when you're doing this style. Here we go. See you guys. Bracing. Caught myself. All right. We'll continue on. Boop. And there we go. All right. So, bracing is in. And I'm going to get this stuff cleaned up. And I'll see you guys in a minute. All right. What's going on? So, we are, I want to say, time is it now? We are probably between 4 and 6 hours in of random stuff. And ladies and gentlemen, we have, now this is all part of the theme, okay? Not the tarps. These tarps will be here regardless. I'm talking like the messiness, just leaving it. You get done a project, what's the first thing you want to do? You want to just check it out. You don't want to clean stuff up. You just want to check it out. So, your typical weekend garage build number one. What once was the hardtail is now the softail. Right? So, let's go over a few things that you are going to want to look forward to dealing with. So, first of all, a shock mount. An upper shock mount. You gotta have one, right? I mean, it's just kind of common sense to have it, but you don't want to get in the way of too much, I guess. You're already losing your airbox. I told you guys that in the beginning. You're losing your exhaust. That should be a given. You have to obviously reroute your exhaust. So really whatever you want to put in there should just be whatever. So I have a bar welded to a plate, or a plate welded to a bar, and then the shock mount welded to that. Now, when you guys look at everything I've done here, I want you to remember one thing sure the whole time I'm doing this. One of these machines is the really good one. The other ones are educational purposes, but this one has to come all apart again anyways. This is not staying the way it is. It's beautiful, I'm sure. Like, it's great. If I had bushings in there, this thing would probably ride like a dream. But this machine has a different destiny, and I was gonna cut it up the way I was gonna cut it up anyways. So, I don't feel too bad about this, but I'm pretty happy that I got this now. So, back to the show. In regard to the swing arm. So, as you guys would have saw earlier, bike frame. Chopped off this piece. Where is it? Oh, down there. I thought that was the bottom, so I kept going up. And no, that was it. Okay, so that piece chopped off. That piece welded on. You need to get rid of, and this is where you guys are going to be like, hey, like, what engineering are you talking about? What stuff do you got to watch out for? You see that chain right there? You see how sloppy that is? Well, I mean, it's got a good amount of slop. That rear end is only so movable in its bracket. You can only adjust this rear end so far. About an inch, half inch, 3/4 of an inch. Whatever it gives you reasonably to move inside that bracket. Right in there. That pulls it backwards and holds it. But you gotta loosen the nut. But if what was I saying? Yeah, you gotta watch for chain tension. So if you cut it and then weld a 1-inch inner diameter, so a 1 1/4 bar, and then start mucking around with it, that chain ain't gonna fit. Ain't no way. There's only maybe like a 1/4 inch of play actually in that, because you want a tiny bit of play. So there's only about a 1/4 inch of play left to go before that rear end is out of play. So you got to watch for that. Make sure if you're doing anything here, this rear end is accounted for. So I took away a 1/2 inch. I needed to, or no, sorry. I cut it straight. I gained an inch. I needed to come back. So that's where also the bar comes into play. This bar is off of the front of the quad. I showed you guys that earlier. Cut it out of the bull bar. But it's 3/4 pipe, fits in there perfect. It is not great. And you could go ahead and put some bushings in, actually make that nice. That's not the point of this. I want you guys to look at this and look at, oh my God, the chain almost actually touches the bar on that side. I want you guys to actually look at this and look at the principle of what's going on here. It is easy. This is relatively easy. You need to make a mount that can rotate, whether you're going to make this a clean bar with bearings on the end for a rod to go through, and then that rod is what you connect to the swing arm, whether you are going to use the original rear end of the machine even, or are you going to go swing arm from like a dirt bike and put that on there. Those are questions you have to ask yourself. Also, how do you want it to be in the end? How rideable do you want this machine to be? How do you want it to look when it's sitting? Like, is this thing gonna bomb through the bushes and get destroyed at every angle? Like you and your buddy building it in the garage for the heck of it? Because if it is, then you don't need to be too crazy on any of this stuff. But the nicer you want it to be, the nicer you gotta be to it, the nicer you gotta make it. So the more, what I meant to say there is, the nicer you want it to be and the nicer you're gonna make it, the more time you have to put into thinking about where and when and how, all those things, because you can get quite ahead of yourself and all of a sudden it's not gonna work and you don't have a lot of wiggle room to fix it. Or you're in a situation like this project where really chop, cut, weld, grind. I mean, as long as you think about where the rear end is in comparison to the chain, or if you have more chain, you don't even need to care about that. But as I've said, the point of this one is what we have is what we worked with. So I'm assuming that you guys, as people who want, or even watching a video about me doing this, you guys probably have like some projects, some pipe, there's a shock, or you know how to easily get a shock, you know, an old one off a little Chinese quad, to do a project like this, right? So it is, where is it? There it is. There's like a half seat. Yeah, I got a half a seat with this machine. So it is kind of, there, kind of that simple. You know what I mean? In regard to design. Oh, I got this fan blowing on me and it's cold. So yeah, so your basic tubes, in tubes, makes the swingy arm go swingy arm. Now again, all rough, all just cut out. There's clearly a large section of gap here. Now you can clean these tubes up, you can leave them the way you want, you can do whatever you want. So bracing, you don't need much, okay? This big old tube here just needs to be supported. Unless you are jumping this thing, you don't really necessarily need to go crazy back here. You can do whatever you want. I mean, really, you could build like a little ladder bar system that comes across here and just ties in. Or you could just do what I did off the frame. That's the exhaust mount. You can still use it, and it's kind of pointless. So, I mean, it's up to you. And then these can be cleaned up. And I'll show you the other side here. So the other side, same thing, into the mount. And then, this is terrible. You guys don't even want to see this one, really. Like, remember, these are all, where is it? These are all coming apart. Everything. Yeah, you can still see right into the pipe there. So, you don't really need, I guess, hang on, guys. Hang on. See, when I need stuff, I can't find it. When I find stuff, I don't need it. Alright, this is the first time I've sat on it, so if it breaks, it breaks. Well, I'm 200 pounds, so I mean, it's got a little wobble, so I mean, this side's leaning anyways. Yeah, and see, before any force from you is really hitting those, yeah, those support brackets, before your weight's really hitting those, the shock is giving out, right? So that's what I mean by, like, you'd really be jumping this thing in order to flatten it out. But back to the principle of what I started with, because I started with the principle of the machine being level. If you guys see what I mean? So, because of the chain tension, it's a little above level. I would have preferred level. I was close. Chain tension brought it back up because it really is fucking, not chain tension, fucking the shock. Fucking, yeah. So, if I were to cut that off and just move it back a millimeter, it'd be good. But as you guys can see, it's pretty level with the machine. The whole machine in general is pretty level. And that's what you're shooting for. You're shooting for levelness, because when you sit on it, it drops. And as you guys just saw there, in fact, I wonder actually, hang on. Should we take it for a ride, guys? That was interesting, actually. The fact that just happened. But that's gonna conclude it for this one. You guys have now seen that basically in like half a day or less time or a little more time, you can basically achieve that. You can do that if you want. And again, if you look at what I am doing here, take the principle of the work I'm doing. Do not copy what I'm doing, or this thing will fucking fall apart on the road on you. Okay? But take the principle. Use nicer parts maybe, you know? But the theme of the next one coming up might just be that. You know, maybe a little nicer, maybe a little, who knows? It could just be a garage build too. But it's 3 different styles going on. And style number 1, ladies and gentlemen, a 1984 Honda 200S ATC is now fully suspended. I'm starting to think that's gunshots, to be honest. The regularity of them. But yeah. Alright. So, when you guys see me next, I will have the other one on the table, and we'll be starting that one. Bye, guys. What is going on, guys? Welcome back. We are back. Got everything all cleaned up here to start the new one. Always suggest cleaning up your area before starting a new project. It's just so much nicer when you like know where everything is. And hang on. Yeah, you know, nice when you know where your tools are, where all the parts you're looking for are. So yeah, all right, guys. Let me introduce you to something you guys, frame you guys may already know. This was the original donor, if you've been following along, for basically most of Project 3. But Project 3 is when you're going real in depth. Project 2, being the series here, is more so, I guess you're going to the next step. You're going to the next stage. You're ready to get parts and put parts on the machine to make it what you want. You know, not changing everything, but putting parts from something else onto this machine. That is kind of step 2 of learning fabricational stuff on rear ends. Now, on this machine, like we were going to show you, it is nothing like the 200S. These are both 1984 machines, but you guys saw in the previous one, it actually had a rear end. The rear end was back here. So this really creates an issue for a lot of guys. So you can do the previous step and just build yourself something, because remember, these are just brackets. Anything someone put together can be taken apart. If you cut those brackets out, I mean, at that point you have to be ready to adjust and keep everything aligned for the rear end. And you have to remember how big the rear ends actually are on this machine. Like, the size of that sprocket is just ginormous. But again, totally different brackets, totally different build. This machine had a battery box where the air box would be. So I mean, right off the bat, you're not losing everything, right? Because you can put your air box in after doing what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna get you guys set up, and I'm gonna start getting the parts ready that are gonna go on this. Totally different style of rear end we're going with, but I'll get you guys set up. We'll get going on her. Yeah. Welcome back, guys. So, we are at the point now where I'm going to show you. So, as we had previously discussed, if you're moving on to stage 2 of your build, something you're interested in, you got to be prepared to go a little further to get some parts, right? Now, when you're looking at this, you're probably thinking, well, what is that? Well, that's the whole front end of a quad. You know what I mean? But you don't have to go this crazy when you, ooh, look at that. Yeah, look at this frame, by the way, guys. This thing was nowhere near savable. So, let me see if I can actually show you. Rotten there. Oh yeah, underside gone. So, this thing wasn't savable to begin with. That's why it was a donor. But I mean, look at it now, right? It's gonna get some expensive parts. But just keep that in mind, guys. This is already starting to look like a shape, and it's just parts chopped up. You know what I mean? You guys will see me there setting it up. This top bar right here, yeah, I can cut this out of the video. I'm still designing this, I guess, while I'm going. So, but yeah, so basically what you are trying to emulate in regard to form and function, I got sun in my eyes, I can't see anything, is a cage. That's it. Took me a second to think of the word. You are trying to form a cage at the back of the three-wheeler. Just imagine the whole front end's here. Okay, so you can see how the top is already there. Top is already kind of the shape of a cage. And on this one, as we discussed, you can build a swing arm and not even touch this. So this model might have actually, I might have actually switched. This model might have actually been the easier model to swing arm. And the other one is the easier model to do this to. But I like doing things the hard way. So you guys are gonna have to excuse me in that regard. So I'm gonna do it the hard way anyways. But you can take these principles and apply them to any machine you want. Yeah, so I'm going to get to work on putting together a cage system. One thing to remember here, okay guys, okay? Unless you are switching to shaft drive, which you can totally get a shaft engine, get a shaft drive rear end. You have a 10-inch disc, or whatever the fuck they're called. You know what I mean. A 10-inch one though. Oh, did the chain come off? The chain came off. Oh, I'm gonna have to roll the chain back on. So I want to drive this thing. But yeah, so you have a 10-inch ring gear, and then you have a 10-inch width overall on the mounting, but the brackets mount at like 6-7 inches. I gotta measure this again, but you got to keep that in mind. That is 100% a factor in a chain drive machine. If you go to put on a cage on the back, and then you can't actually even spin your rear end when you put it in. But then again, you might want to get a whole different rear end with a smaller sprocket to begin with to work on your new machine. So like a Honda 400 quad rear end or something, get a smaller sprocket, something that you'd have a better chance of fitting in between everything, instead of a 10-inch sprocket made for hauling loads and stuff, you know what I mean? Lots of torque with those, not a lot of speed, but you can get a smaller one and achieve, you know, better. So like I said, keep that in mind while you're building anything like this, that you can do this and then you don't have to put the original rear end in. You can go get a smaller sprocket, put it on, and do whatever you want. Or you can get a shaft drive rear end, like, and get a different engine. But we're working off the 200M model for now. We're working with what we got. Even in this regard, we're working with what we got with parts to use. So I'm gonna have to actually take the rear end back off of that machine to show you guys the final here. But back to doing this, and I will show you. Oh, this looks like was that next wing? Or yeah, So if you know, you know. But I will come back to you guys when I got something going on, you know what I mean? Okay, bye guys. Alright guys, so let me show you what we got going on here. We got ass end chopped off, parts cleaned up, and we got a plan. So as you can see, we already have the bottom lining up. And you might think, oh, how much did you have to take out? Remember, I only had to take out that round piece right. I can't find one. There's one right there. So I only had to take out that to achieve the bottom going on. So right off the bat, you guys see how easy it is to add the bottom from a machine? Right? Bottom's on. Obviously not yet. So, top. What do we gotta do about the top? Well, you want to keep your seat, right? At least I would. I like to keep the seat on a machine. And then kind of whatever is whatever, you know what I mean? So you're not gonna lose the air box on this one. We know that. The exhaust, I believe, runs to the side, so you won't lose that. You're not gonna lose your battery box. So if you chop behind the seat, I mean, really, there's not a crazy amount going on back here, because the rear end's here normally. So if you chop right behind the seat on the angle, it is dual piped, not dual piped. It is 2 pipes coming together, so it's pretty strong there. You got your frame right there, right, which you've now cut out the bottom. But wait, you can add back onto it. Remember, this one's rotted to shit, but you can add right back onto this piece here, because you don't want this to become a swing arm, right? Like going down the trail, you decide you're gonna go for a little bit of a rip, and all of a sudden your independent rear suspension is independent rear swing arm suspension. And those, you guys know by now that I'm willing to do some suspension work, but those two just don't go together. So check it out. Bask in its glory so far. I wish it had the front on still. It'd be much better. I should just strip apart this girl and then go, it's uncovered. I want it covered. Yeah. I should just strip this thing apart maybe and just go all the way. You know, this isn't a one-day project, just so you guys know. If this is a one-day project, this is you starting it at 8 a.m. and you know, you're gonna finish this thing, you know, 11 o'clock at night, because everyone has lives, right? Nobody puts a steady 15 hours into something. But there's a good amount of work that would go into this. Or if you and your buddy are doing it, you can speed that up real fast. But yeah, so just keep getting shots of it. I am going to set you guys back up, and I am going to get the, you know what, I was gonna weld the top first, but the bottom's sitting there ready to go. So I think I'm gonna do that. So I'm gonna weld up the bottom. You guys can watch a little bit of that, and then I'm gonna mount up the top, and then the measurements begin. So
Get on my head. 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 Get on my head.
Welcome back, my dudes. So, as you can see here, the idea is coming together. Now, I'm gonna, can I sit here? I can sit here. I'm gonna sit here and be real with you guys. I could have brought that down. You know what I mean? But, there's my tape measure. Do you guys see where 10 inches is there? Rather large, right? That's, like I said, your whole sprocket. So I am doing this again with what you got. So as far as it goes, your sprocket will fit with that like that. And remember, you can always just make longer swing arms. You can actually extend out your wheel this way. Oh shit. As far as you want. So that, look at that, it's like a Star Wars fucking, yeah. So remember that, you can extend out your A-arms as far as you want. You are not limited to having the stock A-arms now, right? So keep that in mind when you're thinking about it. That A, the height is way off. Could have went down, ooh, I'd say probably to here. It could have attached that on if you're changing the sprocket out. We'll go over all that when it's actually together, but I'm gonna get back at doing this thing. Yeah, see you guys in a minute. What is going on, guys? I'm back. It's been a couple hours. Reason being, I had to take apart project number to give you guys a good idea of what's going on here. So obviously with an old Honda, you got stuck bolts in the rear end, you got pain in the ass. I dropped this thing and bent the swing arm. You can see it's got a hard angle now, so I'm gonna have to redo that for the end of the video. Well, the beginning, I guess. But guys, I want you guys to kind of see what's going on here. You see what I'm seeing? It looks like I keep seeing a X-Fighter. But yeah, so what I am thinking now is what I think all thinking. What do you do at this point? You know what I mean? Do you go floating rear end? Do you go solid rear end and you go and get yourself some axles with some U-joints in it? That's where your head's got to be at when you get to this stage. When you get to this kind of process. You know what I mean? Your head's got to be more so in the direction of, oh, but I guess this is what I wanted to show you guys. I wanted to give you guys a good idea. Oh, see? Oh, there it is. See how that takes up that whole area? For demonstration purposes, that is put this so high. Like I said, you switch out the sprocket for a smaller sprocket, maybe one the size of the inner diameter, and you can mount this down here much nicer. And you can even save that top part when you do that. You know what I mean? This is all demonstration purposes of a Honda 200M frame. Now, I'm not sure of the ESs, I'm not sure of the year they're on from that. I am only sure, look at that. Sunset. I'm only sure of these two machines I have shown you, but they are two very basic frame designs that Honda went with. So, to be real, guys, I'm gonna stop for today because that rear end took a couple hours longer than I wanted to. And I feel like if I come back and just hit this thing tomorrow, I will have something. You know, I can't cut the rear end because I actually need the rear end for something. But I do want to see if I can get them into the shafts, into the things, you know, without having to end it there and be like, okay, you need axles with U-joints in it. I want to kind of be able to close up the suspension on it and maybe have a floating rear end, ooh, that'd be nice. But either way, all right, guys, see you guys in the next part of this video. We'll just catch that sunset one last. Oh, there it is. Garage full of shit. All right, welcome back, guys. It is the next day, and I gave the garage just a bit of a cleanup, but we are gonna go over what I did. Since the last time you saw this, I didn't do much. I told you guys saw that I removed the rear end, but all I did since then is loosen these bushings, because these actually do not go up and down with those tightened whatsoever. Good bushings right there. And installed the hubs on the back, so you guys can get kind of an idea. I tried taking them out and fitting them over the original hub, but the splines are too on the hub. So, you know what? Yeah, that's a view for you guys. So, I mean, you are seeing now the idea. And here's the good thing about this. Like, you're probably looking at the rear end like, oh, what do I do here? Well, if you buy yourself, let's say a go-kart axle, kind of a real cheap one, and you get them in that hub, you can have a floating rear end. You don't need that rear end to be connected to anything if your axles are in the hub, if you have a straight axle. So keep that in mind. And right now, the way it sits, very limited travel on this machine. Like, maybe, yeah, see, like, it doesn't go up or down, like, at all. I don't think. There, that's it. Shit. I can't get it to do it. It moves an inch. So, basically, you got about an inch of travel. But the beautiful part about this, just wait folks, if you take this upper cage mount, like I was discussing earlier, and keep lowering it down the frame, right there. So you take this and you bring it down the frame. Look how much room you now know you have for a 10-inch rear end. Like, raise that up obviously like an inch. But you have at least 4 inches of good play wiggle room to go up and down with your rear end. I mean, 4 inches of travel is like nothing to spit at if you're adding suspension to a machine. 4 inches of travel is pretty good. So you got option A. Go sit. So you got that was actually the front end falling backwards, taking everything out. The splines are taking a beating. So option A, floating rear axle. The concept just seems just fine. And believe it or not, guys, I might even just actually try that out on this thing. Like right now, the way it sits, a floating rear axle, see how it works. But if you wanted that to be solid, and you wanted to go the next route, which is basically adding live axles to the machine. Oh, here it is. Yeah. So if you wanted to go the route of actually getting in, you can just take this spline out and like you get one that's an appropriate spline, or you build your own rear end and you see the axle shaft in there. That is the next step. And you can still keep this rear end in chain drive. You would just do your modifications now to the axle. So you'd want to do it like here, so this is untouched. You don't want to fuck up anything here, that's for sure. So you'd want to modify it here to then accept a short spline to give yourself a short. You could even, if you're getting that creative, you could even just buy 2 small U-joints off Amazon and a little bar. Make your own, right? So just remember when you're looking at this and you're doing this, this is 100% as much effort and willpower and heart as you want to put into this project. Just your basic blueprints of what to do. I get Star Wars vibes every time I see this thing. I'm not gonna lie, I've had the real urge to cut the front end off a Ronda and put it on this thing just to see what it looks like. But there it is, guys. So you would obviously cage the back, no matter how high you go. Like I said, where the bar on the left or on the right is, you could bring the top down to that level and still have a floating rear end. And any mounting points you lose up top, because this model, if you remember from the beginning, only has the bar up top. There was nothing down below. So you don't lose much, but you can make up any tabs you do lose, right? Like right off the bat, that could mount the fender. It's not going to be stock, but oh well. And then if you wanted to go back to solid rear end, which that would be the axle, I'm just going back to that point. You can still mount your solid rear end. Like, you just, it goes on the inside of this. That's not where it goes. I know that, guys. But you could still mount this. And then, like, you put, hang on, let me slip it in there. You put your piece back in, and you could still mount your rear end back to the machine on a new bottom end, and then simply do the live axle. And bam, you got it. And suspension, that is, in my actual, once you get to adding the spring to the machine, that's the easiest part about all of this. Because, I mean, you have your tabs. You can see that right off the bat, right? So you can cut these off and move these anywhere you want. You want to put them, and actually on this machine, kind of works out that if you were to do, this happens to be, just so you guys know, a Suzuki Quad Runner front end. Not a rear end, a front end. So like you'd have to make the hubs obviously not front end ones because they rotate. You guys obviously know this, they shouldn't do that. I guess I should point that out while we're doing this. But if you get the right geometry, you could just take the tabs from up top, put them on the bottom, and then mount them to the frame right there. You know, buy shorter shocks obviously. But you could mount them up here and have no chain problem whatsoever, even on a solid rear end or a live rear end. Right? This is the kind of creativity you have to employ when you're throwing something like this together. But remember, this is step 2. I went step 1, like Ronda, and built a swing arm on this machine. But you don't have anything on the bottom, so you're still playing with fire because the top is not supported. Like on that one, the top had bracing supporting it. So all I had to do was go back to that top with bracing. On this one, if you tied in suspension to those top bars, they would have caved in on themselves. There was nothing holding them together. So again, you got to look at how the machine is designed. How is your machine designed? What can you do creativity-wise to keep the same design, but not the same design? Same, but different, if you know what I mean. So keep that in mind when you're working on this stuff. Everything is about perspective. Does it still look the same? Kinda, sorta, right? Instead of a straight bar going out the back and rear end, it's just now a cage. So, and obviously, once you lower that down the frame, you would cage the rear end, continue on. The bottom skid plate still goes on. And if you want to get real crazy with stuff, this bull bar was the donor. You could even start doing dumb stuff like that, right? Like now the machine is starting to look like it's got a rear bumper now, right? So think about that. So you can do whatever you want because that part goes on it and you give you a rear bumper. No, it's not factory. Nothing about this is factory. But does that really matter? Because you don't have a choice if you want to do this. So that's basically it. Really, your 2 choices. Solid rear axle, in which you could go with a live axle, i.e. get a couple of U-joints. And you could even use this bar. I'm not sure how well it welds. But, you know, cut it, add your U-joint, cut it, add your U-joint, put that in. Get obviously a different hub, not a front end hub, a rear end hub. But if you wanted to go live rear axle, you just go get yourself like even if you can find on Facebook Marketplace or we got one here called Infomall. But Facebook Marketplace, Infomall, whatever your local shopping area is, or Amazon, you get the cheapest one you can get that is actually steel. Don't order one that's like cast. Fucking, you can't do anything with that. But you modify the axle from there. This axle's even, I think, slightly bent. So it's like it needs to be ground and fucking modified anyways. The splines are good though. But remember that. The intimidation comes from taking something good and making it, or ruining it. But if your intent to begin with was to upgrade it, you're not really ruining it. So, and in regard to machine, this is, like I think I already said this in the video, This is the equivalent of taking like a really clapped out 1957 Chevy truck from a field that is literally just held together by like hopes and dreams and throwing a 20 grand fucking drivetrain in it. That's basically what this is. So, because I mean, the whole bottom's rotted out. I am taking that battery box. I am not going to lie to you guys. That battery box and, oh, it's inside the house, I believe. The plastic piece that goes inside the battery box, the battery saver, is still good. And it's still got that. So that is needed for that project, that battery box. So I'm taking that. Now that this project is done, we are going to jump on over to number 3. Now the work on number 3 is already done. Not gonna lie to you guys. But maybe I'll throw some footage in. We'll see how it goes. Either way, on to the next one, guys. Peace. They said it couldn't be done. No, they said it shouldn't be done. They said I would fail. No, like from an engineering perspective, it's a pretty stupid idea to begin with. Their doubt fueled my fire. Alright, I still think you're gonna fucking wreck it. But alright, man. My precious. Welcome back, guys. My name is Steve the Canadian, and this is part 3 of Mild to Wild on turning your rear end of your 3-wheeler into a suspended rear end. Let's get into it and check this one out. Alright, so what's going on, guys? Welcome back. So I got everything tucked away again, just taking some beauty shots, and we are on to part 3, ooh, we got lights, of Mild to Wild. Wild, guys, I went all the way on this one. Now, I'm not going to lie to you guys, this work was done prior to this video idea, but what better than already doing the hard work before you have to do the easy work, right, guys? That was kind of a benefit of this one. So yeah, we'll go over and I'll show you what's up. So you're probably thinking to yourself, well, Steven, that's not a Honda 3-wheeler. I'll give you that, okay? This is where we're going with this machine. This is level 3 of you want to customize your 3-wheeler and you want to add rear suspension to it, but maybe a 3-wheeler just isn't designed for you want to do. You know what I mean? Maybe like somebody designed a 4-wheeler better than the 3-wheeler, but you love 3-wheelers. Well, that's where this kind of work comes into play. So again, this is what I mean though by, this is like stage 3 of customization. This is where you are going out and you are searching for other machines to continue customizing your machine. Now, the only reason I classify this machine as a Honda is because it has a Honda front end with a Honda VIN, Honda number. It's a 1984 200M. In fact, video number 2 was the donor for this one, so thank you to that one, and the reason why it doesn't have a front end. But let's get into the suspension and show you guys. So, oh, Jeff's coming to join us. So this is a Suzuki Quad Runner 3-wheeler rear end, and as you guys can see, it comes preloaded with independent rear suspension. Now that's actually a rarity on a lot of quads. Work quads, sport quads, anything, because the engineering that went into designing these tubes to work properly with the tires and everything was quite a bit. Like just to design that bracket at the right height, and just a quick stop, that ties in to number 2 when I was telling you guys about adjusting your frame height when you're putting on the brackets. That's what I'm talking about. You want to keep in mind angles. You want to make sure your axles have the right angle. So on this, that all had to be accounted for. Will these axles go up enough and clear? You know what I mean? Yes, they will. They have lots of travel. Will these shocks go all the way up and down without hitting anything? I don't know. I'm still waiting to put the motor in, believe it or not, to make sure that they... Look at that. That's pretty close. Let's get that airline out of the way. Look at that. Yeah, so that one's got a tiny bit more. So from Jeff's perspective here, because he's been building this with me, this is going about as far fabrication-wise as really I think you're going to start going before you can yourself a fabricator, you know what I mean? Before you can consider yourself doing crazy stuff. I call this the wild one because those are not just shocks. These are Gabriel. There they are. Let's go through the sea of parts, guys. These are not air shocks. Do these have my address on it? They don't. Oh, hang on. I'll just look at this. Just Gabriel Hijacker. Yeah. Oh, they didn't send any stickers with it. That's a nice sticker, though. But if you guys are looking for these, they are Gabriel Hijacker something, something, something number. But these are the 13-inch model made for a Chevy. And they come with upper tab mounts made for a Chevy that bolt into the frame. So I modified the top. But essentially, from what I can tell, these have a stabilizer rod in them. That's... Oh, I can't even do it. That's the center rod. But there's an airbag inside there. So when these are inflated, these are essentially just riding on airbags. Which is... He's being a whiny bugger. Hence why I call it an airbagged three-wheeler. Because really it's just riding on airbags. And those stabilizer bars are there just to make sure it doesn't wobble. Which is why the front end of this machine is probably getting those shocks right there. I'm not going to order a new set to try it out. I'll order a new set for the back of this thing. But the front is going to get that same treatment. So you guys see that front end over there? Just poking right there? Yeah, that one there? Yeah. Same treatment as the back. So again, tying into the wild theme, once you start doing stuff like this, as in the front end of that quad is what made number 2 possible, along with the frame that made this possible. So these two machines contributed to a whole nother machine. And then actually, like, quick second here, I want to throw a shout out to a girl that's been really helping this whole project. So jump to that. All right. So now that you guys have seen that, you'll understand that, like, these machines are just swapping parts. So to go with the whole theme of the video, you can buy 3 machines or 2 machines and some junk and start building whatever you want. If you got running engines and stuff, that's the inspiration. But you never want to get too ahead of yourself. You'll notice with the first 2, I showed you guys the principles, but you don't start cleaning stuff up until you know it'll work. Just like this. Everything stays rough until I know it will work. There's no reason to clean up your work fully. Like if I were to clean up the whole rear end right now, and then the front doesn't work out, or I put it together and the front breaks, or I need to add more tabs and I've already like cleaned up the frame. You know what I mean? You always end up adding something or wanting to or needing to. And that's why you don't finish anything. Like I got to put the seat and the rear on, like bolted in to make sure these tabs are good. So I don't want to finish anything. You know what I mean? Watch for that kind of stuff. Because if you get ahead of yourself and then move to the next thing and it doesn't work, it's more work for yourself now to make it work. And I've run into that 9 times on this thing already, making more work for myself by either ordering the wrong parts or just not coming at it the right direction to begin with. You know what I mean? So the wild side of adding independent rear suspension, wild side of adding rear suspension to your 3-wheeler, and then this is going as far as number 2 in adding independent rear suspension, and then you just make it wild by adding airbags on the back. Yes, I added a whole new machine to a machine to make that happen, but for all intents and purposes, this video is about making your 3-wheeler suspended in the rear. Maybe you're building a custom machine yourself, and you're wondering, what can I do? Maybe someone's selling a 250 quad runner in your area for a couple $100 because it's beat up. But now you see that if you cut the rear end off, you can add it to almost any machine that you have and have independent rear suspension. You know what I mean? Creativity is key. So look at what it is, and just because it is that doesn't mean it has to stay that. It can be whatever you want it to be. This had 4 wheels in the summer, and I was doing donuts on it on studded winter car tires. 20-inch rims on this thing. I'll pop a picture up here. Doing donuts. It was incredible. And now it's a freaking airbag 3-wheeler. So whatever you want to do. Again, creativity, heart, drive. And again, this one, I was talking about it in the other videos. Giving your heart into the project and how much time you put into it determines how nice your project is. This is an example of it. There is so much fucking work on the front there to make sure it is stable and clean, so that when it's sandblasted and painted, there's no pinholes. It looks factory to the frame. The measurements that went in to make sure that the factory skid plate fit the front of the bike. Like, look at that. That couldn't look any nicer. And that's the factory skid plate bolted in the factory spot in the back, and then 2 tabs welded on. And then that. The gas tank, for instance, when it's in, bolts up perfectly right here. And then there's all this open room for a compressor. And then the engine goes in the back. You know what I mean? You put a little bit of time in and things start working out. You don't just have like a piece of junk thrown together. You have a clean machine with original parts in some cases that make it look even better. And you're twice as happy. Like, if I put another 45 minutes to 2 hours into cleaning up the ends of the tabs and doing everything, this back end will look spick-fucking-tacular. But that comes at the end of the fabrication, not during the fabrication. But it can be done, right? But some people will get it to this point and be like, oh, it's on there. And I've bounced on this thing. It's nowhere near bending or breaking. But some people would call that good, put the wheels on, put the motor in, and go. This one, I want to be gold. I want this thing to be my dream machine. So, be realistic. And remember that. It's all about what you want. So, here it is, guys. The wild side. And if you want, the reason why this one's a little shorter and there's 0 build, like maybe I'll throw a little build stuff in here. But it's because I've got 4 videos out already on this thing. So you guys can keep up to date on what this is, how it's going. And yeah, so back to me in the garage. All right, bye guys. All right, my dudes, we are back for a quick final roundup on machine number 1. So, let's go over one more time what we did. Bottom, gone. Chopped right off. Added a tube inside a tube. You got yourself a swing arm with the original rear end. Bam! Shock mount. Welded a new brace at the top. Seat can still go on. Shock mounts to the rear end now. You can weld right to the carrier. Don't get to worry about that. So, yeah. Rounding up, number 1. It is really that easy. I actually bent it when I was taking it apart. It is that easy to throw together a swing arm on the rear end of your Honda 3-wheeler. Now remember, this is a 1984 Honda 200S. So, this style of frame you get away with a lot more than the other ones because it already has a rear swing arm basically. But again, if you are building this project for yourself, the basic principles. Go out and get yourself a nice quad swing arm and do the same thing. And you got yourself rear suspension. So, number 1, you and your buddy in a garage, 6 beers in, rear suspension. Done. Let's move on to the roundup on number 2. Alright guys, welcome back. We are on machine number 2. So, you guys saw it all being put together. Here it is just chilling out. Yeah, got the shocks just kind of placed up there so that you can see. Now, model, this was the 1984 200M. You do not get the luxury of having a bottom area to arm, right? Directly off the back, where I cut those bars out, is your motor mounts. So all of this doesn't exist on the original one. I took the rear end of the other one so I could show you on this one. But I mean, that's just basic shock placement, right? We've already discussed if you want to go floating rear end or hard rear end, because you can weld your where are they? Yeah, or a hard rear end, because you can weld your brackets directly back. You can put new pipe in that bottom and weld these directly back on and have a hard tail, and then get some axles, or just get some U-joints and build axles, and you can keep your original rear end. You don't need to get a new rear end. But here's what you have to remember from the building up. I went that high on the frame to show you guys how high you have to go to put that rear end back in. That sprocket will not just go back in to something like this if, let's say, you want to put it down the frame, because really you could come down to where the shocks are almost with this top and not even get rid of this whole top bar that's up here. You could make that work, but remember that this sprocket is 10 inches. That is 12 inches right there. So if you're thinking you're going to get away with the original rear end and not do something like this and really think it out, you're wrong. So again, all of this is just chopping and welding, but design is everything. Planning is everything. You guys just watch me slap it together. You're not going to want to slap it together when you do it. But now you know basically how to start, and that's the key. So number 2, going to get completely stripped apart. Those are way too good of parts to be on that. I think I've said it twice already. This is basically like putting a $20,000 drivetrain in your junk truck with holes in the floor and everything. No, and yeah. So yeah, that kind of does it for number 2. Number 3, I'll just this one, because honestly I don't need to do another video on this one. You guys can go watch the vids. But number 3 is your wild, and then start getting into other machines being mixed with machines and everything. And yeah, so we'll get back to me ending the video. Yeah. What's up, guys? I just want to thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Huge shout out to Donut Dan, new subscriber, for giving me the idea to do this video. It's something that I've always wanted to do, was never going to film it. So thank you again for piquing my interest and giving me the idea to actually follow through with it. Also guys, if you're interested in any more three-wheeler content, head on over to threewheelerworld.com, not a sponsor, and you will find everything in regard to restoration, customization, three-wheelers of all kinds. So head on over, check it out. And again, I'd like to thank you guys for watching the video. Hopefully you learned something. And if you didn't learn something, hopefully maybe seeing it done in action took away a bit of that worry of giving it a try. There's nothing more heartbreaking than cutting a working machine in half and it not working out. So remember, planning, creativity, and just overall will gets it done. No matter the design, no matter how crazy it is, no matter what you guys think you might run into, you'll get her done. So take this video with a grain of salt. It was made because of viewer suggestion and the fact that you can't find this content on YouTube. Everybody shows you, oh, go buy a kit from 1970 and put it on, but you can't find the kit. Well, hopefully this video gives you a direction to move forward if this is what you're looking for. So, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next